Welcome to Sixth Row Center, your best seat in the house for movie chat. I'm Heath. That's JD. Hello, JD.
Hey, everybody.
Today we're going to be talking about the 2025 vampire movie Sinners, which was written and directed by Ryan Coogler, who has written and directed 5 movies: Fruitvale Station, Creed, Black Panther 2, and now Sinners. Every single one of them had Michael B. Jordan in them in some capacity. Sinners is about an Irish vampire in 1932 who is attempting to tempt an amazing musician by assimilating all of his friends and family into its brood, though some would say there's a lot more going on than that. As I mentioned, it stars Michael B. Jordan playing twin brothers, Miles Caton, Delroy Lindo, Hailee Steinfeld, Wunmi Mosaku, Jack O'Connell, Jayme Lawson, Omar Benson Miller, Lee Jun Lee, Thomas Pang, and Saul Williams. The budget for Sinners was somewhere between 90 and 100 million. And it grossed over $370 million, making it quite a financial success. The movie achieved what critics call universal acclaim, and it garnered a record 16 Academy Award nominations. It was literally nominated for every single award that it could be nominated for, except for Best Actress. Wunmi Mosaku was nominated for Best Supporting Actress and Delroy Lindo for Best Supporting Actor, but it won Best Original Score, Cinematography, Original Screenplay, and Best Actor for Michael B. Jordan. I did not see this at the theater, but I did get a 4K copy to watch at home. Coogler switches between aspect ratios, filming most of it in a 2.76:1, which is really narrow and super wide, like really, really wide. And then for a lot of the fight scenes and stuff, he uses IMAX, which is, that huge, I mentioned it before. It's 3x4. It looks like a big square, but a little bit taller, and it has incredibly high, clear resolution. Even though there were some gorgeous IMAX shots, I wouldn't say this is necessarily a movie that you would need to see at the theater. If you have a big enough TV and a premium copy, I think I got enough out of it from watching it at home. Now, JD and I are going to break down Sinners a little different than we normally do, so I'd like to say up front that there will be spoilers. If you have not seen the movie yet, go see it, come back to this spot, and we'll be here. And now I'd like to bring JD in, and if you could tell me about your experience seeing Sinners, and then we'll start going through the movie in detail. JD?
I also did not see it in the theater. I saw it on HBO. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I would, obviously it won for cinematography. It's gorgeous, gorgeous movie. Worth seeing on a clear screen at least. I don't know that, like you said, I'm not sure that you need to see it in the theater. And it's probably too late now anyway, right? So
it won a bunch of Oscars, so maybe they'll bring it back as like an Oscar winner.
Right. I see that they did that with one battle after another, at least in some of the theaters. Anyway, yeah, gorgeous film, but you can totally watch it at home.
Okay, so we're going to try to go scene by scene through this and see why everybody seemed to think it was such an amazing movie. This is going to be crazy. We've never done anything like this. Buckle in, here we go. Sinners opens with a prologue of Annie. She's one of the characters. We'll get to her. She's explaining how there are people who are such great musicians, they can straddle the line between life and death and conjure spirits. She tells how every culture has these people, from the ancient Irish to the Native Americans to West Africans. She says that this musical gift can be healing, but it also attracts evil. I thought it was a kind of cool prologue. It was done with like cave drawings. Tonally, it reminded me of the prologue to the Fellowship of the Rings, if you remember that one. Even the music, I thought, was similar to that. Certainly the idea of talent or beauty being a force for good, but also something that attracts evil. It's nothing really new. The musician as a sort of magician is an interesting wrinkle. Of course, anyone who grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons, I immediately thought of like the bard character. That's sort of what Sammy's character was, but we'll get to him later.
Yeah, didn't think of that.
The actual story starts with Sammy, played by Miles Caton, driving a new-looking red car up to a church in rural Mississippi. His clothes are all covered with blood. He's got scratches on his face. He's limping. He's carrying only the fretboard of a broken guitar. His father is played by Saul Williams. If you've never heard of Saul Williams, he was a rapper like in the 90s and 2000s, and he's a poet and he does spoken word stuff. If you've never heard the song List of Demands, it's a great song. You got to hear it. It's one of those pump-up songs, like if you ever want to be pumped up, like at the gym or whatever, listen to List of Demands by Saul Williams. Anyway, you should. It's a really good song. When Sammy gets there, he sees flashes. Every time he looks at his father, he sees these flashes of this evil-looking, bloody guy with red glowing eyes and all sorts of vicious things. And the preacher basically says to Sammy that he's a sinner, he should repent, and he specifically tells him to drop that piece of the guitar that he's holding. But he doesn't, because there's a title card that says 1 day earlier, which is a device we've seen a million times. The whole, we see something interesting and then jump back in time to see how you get there or whatever. I thought the opening was kind of intriguing. It makes you want to know what happened the night before. What do you think about the fact that every time he looks at his father, who's a preacher, he sees flashes of the vampire? Are these two characters supposed to be similar or something?
I hadn't given it much thought, but the father figure is always, and plus him being a preacher, and I don't want to jump too far ahead, but the preacher told him that when you go and play music, you're basically asking for trouble. He exactly explicitly says that. So I don't know if that was more what they were going for, or just the father figure thing, or I'm not sure why. I didn't read into that. I didn't even notice that, really.
Yeah, it could have been nothing. So we go back to the day before. Sammy's picking cotton. He's humming a spiritual. The work ends for the day. He goes home. You see he lives in squalor, but they make a point of showing that, the family is laughing and they're happy and they're having fun. Sammy looks under his bed for something that's not there. This is interspersed with when we meet Michael Jordan. I'm just going to call him Michael Jordan because I can't stand saying the B every time. I know you're not going to get him mixed up with the basketball player, right?
Right.
He plays the Smoke Stack twins, Smoke and Stack. And apparently they own the car that Sammy's going to be driving the next day. And they meet up with this white dude named Hogwood, who's selling them a derelict timber mill that they want to use for a juke joint. Now, Hogwood is vaguely racist, but the interaction, what I got out of the interaction is it shows the difference between these two brothers. Smoke, who's dressed with I've seen this movie like 3 or 4 times, and the only way I could tell them apart was I knew that one of them was wearing a blue hat, and the other one was wearing a red hat. But on this last viewing, as I was really watching it close, I got a lot more out of it. Smoke in the blue hat is really serious, and he don't take shit. Stack in the red hat is like friendly, and he's always making jokes and stuff. That's kind of what I got between the two of them. So they pay him a bunch of money for the mill. It's this big bag, and he's actually surprised that there's so much money in it. And before he leaves, they threaten him, and they say, hey, man, if you or any of your clan buddies come around here, we're just going to start shooting. And Hogwood replies, clan don't exist no more, which I thought was interesting. So we go back to Sammy at the church. It's empty. His father is there, and that's where he gets the guitar that you're going to see the pieces of the next day. The preacher, his father, asks Sammy to help him with the sermon in the morning. And the sermon is specifically about how all people are tempted, but God gives every man the power to resist that temptation if he uses it. And he tells Sammy to give up playing music because music leads to temptation and sin. He says, just like what you were mentioning, he says you keep dancing with the devil, and one day it's going to follow you home, which is kind of obvious foreshadowing. And Sammy refuses. The twins come and pick him up. It turns out they're cousins. Their father and the preacher were brothers. I don't think there's anything really new about Christians thinking music is deviltry. If you look back to Kevin Bacon in Footloose,
right?
It's the same thing. It's the same thing, right? Don't dance, don't play music. It's all evil. What was it when we were kids? It was heavy metal music was evil. I can't remember which band it was they were specifically going after.
Was it Judas Priest? I don't remember. Anyway, heavy metal and D&D, Dungeons and Dragons.
And D&D, sure.
There was that big scare where they thought all D&D players were like cultists.
Which we were, so it's okay. Okay, I'll be quiet. As if people don't know we're cultists. Anyway, they drive to a spot in the woods where they have this truck full of illegal contraband. It's beer and wine. It's hidden. There's a rattlesnake in the back, and you see how the brothers work kind of seamlessly to kill it. Smoke stabs the snake in the throat. I don't know if there was anything supposed to be about that, like that was some sort of symbolism, the snake, Adam and Eve. And
I thought it showed just how they were setting up then how tight the brothers were. Because if you remember that scene, they step to the side.
He throws the knife at him.
And he just throws him a knife, and he instantly stabs the snake with the knife. The timing had to be perfect, and it was without even breaking a sweat. Like, they didn't even get flustered by that. So they were really, really in sync twin brothers.
That's what I took from it, too.
Well, and then, of course, it's liquor and snake and then all that evil with the symbolism.
They're running late, so they split up. Smoke takes the truck, and Stack and Sammy get in the car. Smoke drives to town and pays a little girl to watch the truck while he goes to speak to Bo and Grace Chow. They're a Chinese couple who own supply stores, and they're old friends of his. He wants to buy supplies for the juke joint. This has one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie, if you remember this. So he goes in and he talks to Mr. Chow, Bo, I guess his name was, and he says he wants whatever supplies and stuff. And so the father tells the daughter to go across the street and get the mother. So they're on the black side of the road, and she walks, and you can see her. It's all, black people and black stores and stuff. And as she walks across, the other side is the white side of the road. And it's all white people in a white store. She goes in and she gets the mother, and they show the same thing, the mother walking back, going from the white side to the black side, which I thought was a really cool scene that I didn't think Ryan Coogler shot very well, because he did the whole thing in a real tight close-up, so you couldn't see all the cool stuff on the street. But
I did not even notice that.
You didn't even, oh, yeah.
Twice I've watched it, and I did not even notice that one side of the street versus the other.
Honestly, I mean, we might get into it a little bit aside from the story, but I didn't really like his direction. There was some beautiful shots. I understand why it won Best Cinematography. There were some gorgeous shots, like when they were driving through the fields and you can see these beautiful fields and stuff. But as far as following the action so that you could see all the things just like this, you couldn't see it, I didn't think he did that great of a job.
I would have to rewatch it again with that more critical eye, because I thought the direction was great in terms of each scene was visually interesting. The camera was usually in motion. It wasn't a lot of static shots. So I felt like, even looking specifically at direction, I thought he did a great job. But now that you mention that it was maybe
it did have a lot of camera motion, definitely.
Yeah, like it was fun to watch it just from a directing point of view, not even talking about the story, just visually, and not even talking about cinematography, but just what's in the frame was always interesting. But now that you point out that maybe we were missing some of the action, that's an interesting thought. I will say that on the macro here, I think we're looking at it's a vampire story.
Right.
Even though it obviously deals a lot with racial issues and the gritty realities of 1930s, none of that is the plot of the movie. It's a vampire movie. So
I get you, but, and I totally agree with you, because when I watch this movie now 3 times, I see it as a vampire movie, but everyone else, the reason they're saying it's so great is because it's more than just a vampire movie.
It is, but I don't know. I thought that part of it was pretty masterfully done, because I went into it thinking I was going to get one movie and I got something a lot more playful and fun. And yet the times where it hits you, the racial issues and the deeper issues, that when he hits you with them, it's a gut punch. Like it hits you hard. And yet I still think it was basically a vampire movie. It doesn't preach at you. It just shows you a gritty reality of racism.
We're going to talk about all these scenes, so we're going to get to the ones you're talking about, and you can explain why you feel that way. But we'll continue. The little girl that Smoke paid to watch the truck, she calls him out because there's guys poking around his truck, and he ends up shooting the one guy in the ass, which I really like this sequence. I thought that the movie on the whole was, like you said, kind of gritty. It was a horror, and oftentimes you mix horror with comedy. That goes well together. But I actually thought a lot of the comedy in this movie missed the mark. This scene did not. I loved it. He shoots the guy in the butt, and he turns around, and he's like, Terry? He's like, Smoke? I thought that was great. And then he shoots his partner just so the partner can't say, hey, man, I can't have you saying you almost stole from the Smokestack twins. I thought that was good, too.
It was good, and that helped establish, and we'll talk more about this, that they're gangster. Right? These guys are in no way, shape, or form good guys. Even their own community, a lot of people don't like them because they're gangsters. Won't take their money because it's blood money.
Right. They have a reputation.
And it's well earned.
Right.
And so, like a gangster, he shoots the partner just so he can't go around saying, hey, I almost got away with robbing them. Right?
Yeah.
So he's
I like that.
Gangster. Yeah. And they're coming back from Chicago and all of it.
Right. We learned that in this scene, that they had just been up in Chicago, supposedly working for Al Capone. That's what Terry says. I thought you were gone in Chicago working for Al Capone.
And they don't say what he was doing.
Right.
You know, he's running booze or something.
So at this same time, Stack and Sammy are driving to the train station to recruit Delta Slim, who is Delroy Lindo. I love Delroy Lindo. He's one of my favorite character actors. He's made a million movies, but I always remember him as the bad guy in Get Shorty. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah,
where he was West Indian Archie in Malcolm X, which I just happened to be watching some scenes of him in Malcolm X. They popped up on my YouTube for whatever reason.
Huh.
So he plays harmonica and piano, and he doesn't want to go to the club with them, but basically he's an alcoholic, and they tempt him with bottles of Irish beer, and supposedly bottled beer was something he'd never seen before. I wonder if there's something meaningful about that, considering that the bad guy turns out to be Irish. He tempts him with Irish beer. I don't know.
Yeah, I wondered the same thing, if that was meant to be, if we're meant to pick up on something there, or if it's just coincidence that beer was still new, having carbonated beverages and everything.
Right.
Especially having it cold was something new, and they were drinking cheap corn liquor and all that. But I did wonder, and I have not figured out what that was, if we were supposed to put something onto the fact that it's Irish beer. Not to jump ahead, but at one point says, hey, you got Irish beer, Italian wine, you're stealing from both sides. And
Right.
Right.
So maybe that's just all it was.
That's all it was. The Italian mafia and then the Irish mafia. Still under prohibition. None of that was legal. So they tempt Delroy Lindo, who I loved. He was my favorite character in the movie.
Yeah. So during the ride there, we discover that the twins' father used to beat them, and one day he knocks out Stack, and Smoke murders him. So that's something we know about them. Also, we hear Sammy play guitar and sing for the first time, and goddamn, does Miles Caton have a great voice. I mean, I was like blown away. The kid in real life, he was 19 when they filmed that. If you can imagine that voice coming out of a 19-year-old, I thought that was amazing.
All the music here was awesome.
I like the blues stuff. But it was kind of surprising to me that his song didn't win Best Song at the Oscars. They won for Best Score, but not that song where Miles Caton was singing, and I think he's just got such an amazing voice. So at the train station, they run into Mary, who is Stack's ex-girlfriend that he grew up with, but he abandoned her when the twins left for Chicago. She's like a mulatto, and she's played by Hailee Steinfeld, who, as an aside, her uncle is Jake Steinfeld. Have you ever heard of Jake Steinfeld?
No.
Do you remember Body by Jake?
Yeah.
He was Body by Jake. That's her uncle.
Huh.
Yeah.
She did a great performance.
Yeah, she was good. Mary is still totally in love with Stack. And then we also see Sammy, who falls immediately for this married young lady that he meets there named Pearline, and he asks her to watch him play at the club that night, though she kind of plays coy. The three of them drive through the cotton fields to pick up this huge guy named Cornbread, who's going to be their bouncer. And they pass a black chain gang while they're out there, and Delta Slim gets all emotional, and he tells the story about he and his friend who were out, and they got caught by the police, and his friend got lynched. And that was definitely his Oscar scene. I mean, you could see there was a lot of emotion in Delroy Lindo, who we've already talked to. He's a really great character actor.
Yes, but that scene is what I was talking about, the gut punch.
Okay, yeah. So we go back to Smoke, who visits his ex-wife, Annie, who's played by Wunmi Mosaku. And she was the woman who was narrating the beginning. She's like all into hoodoo and stuff. And we find out that they had a child that died. He tells her about the club, and he wants her to work for him at the club, like cooking. And she, as you mentioned, she won't take his money. It's blood money. And as I mentioned, Annie is into hoodoo. Not voodoo, but hoodoo. And she says that it's hoodoo, it was her hoodoo and prayers that kept the twins safe while they were doing all sorts of illegal stuff in Chicago. And he counters by saying, well, why didn't your hoodoo save our baby when she got sick? Which I thought was powerful. I actually thought this whole sequence with the two of them was probably the most powerful scene in the whole movie. The relationship that these two people have, how it was fractured by the death of their daughter, a baby, and how they're both really in pain, and it caused them to split, but that they both still really love each other.
I'd agree with that, except maybe the Delroy Lindo scene right before it.
Right.
But yes, it did a great job. It gave, again, we'll talk more about this, but it gave some depth to the characters. She was great throughout and was a more whole character. I thought really the main two star, or Michael Jordan as the brothers, were kind of thin characters. Very enjoyable. I'm not saying that as a negative. Like, they're fun to watch, but they are kind of two-dimensional. They're gangster, and they don't ever grow out of that. Even there's no real character development, for them anyway. It's fun. The story was great. It was well written, but still, it's a vampire movie, and they're the hero, and
Well, see, because I don't think they're the heroes. I think the protagonist is Sammy. He's the reason the whole story happens. He's the one who needs to survive at the end.
Yeah, but he's Frodo and they're Samwise, or whatever. I mean, like,
Sure.
maybe he's the protagonist, but they are really the stars of the movie. Even though he's kind of just going along. This is what he wanted, to be a musician and everything, and he's getting that first taste of it. But they're the ones driving the action. They're opening this juke joint, and they're going to get it done today, no matter what. And this all happens in one day,
right?
Which I thought
all in
was
one day.
Great. We talked a little bit about the episode with Bone Lake and Josh telling us about writing movies with minimal characters and minimal sets. Well, this one didn't have minimal sets. It had lots of different sets and scenes, but it was still a contained story in one day. And I thought that was, when they said one day earlier, I was like, oh God, this is going to be tough for them to pull off. But they sure did it.
As I've seen this movie now 3 times, I would agree with you. After the first and second viewings, I didn't dislike Michael Jordan's performance. I totally agreed with you. Like, there wasn't so much depth in the characters, and I mean, really, what did he do? What did he do as both of those characters? They were kind of thinly written. Watching it for the third time, I got a lot more out of both of the characters. Again, this whole thing with Smoke and his wife, and the pain that he carries inside for that, as well as how he spent his entire life protecting his brother by killing the father and by watching over him during all the different things that they were doing, something that comes to fruition a little bit later in the plot. And then the same thing with the younger guy, who is really the more friendly, comical person, and yet we'll see that he has this relationship with the Hailee Steinfeld character, and that there was a lot more involved in that relationship as well, which we'll get to.
Yeah, well written.
I would agree. I think the first half of this movie was very, very well written, but I think it goes off the rails at some point, and we'll get to it when we get to it. Even though I thought this was one of the most powerful scenes in the whole movie, the whole sequence with the two of them, I thought it was poorly directed. It was done in lots of close-ups, wide shots. I've mentioned previously how you can't see a lot of the action. You're just seeing faces, which I know there was a lot of emotion going on, so you want to see their faces. There's one point where he takes some money from her. It's fake money. She takes the fake money from the residents. It's like company money. It can only be spent at the company store. And Michael Jordan's character, he's like, that's not money. What the hell good is that? And so he playfully grabs is going to get rid of it. And she holds a knife out to him and puts it up to his throat and says, you give me my money back. But the way they filmed it, they're right next to each other. You can't even see the knife at his throat because they're so close to each other. It's a wide shot. It would have been so much more cinematic if he's on one side and she's on the other side and she's holding the knife out at him. It would have been so much better, but maybe I'm nitpicking. Meanwhile, we finally meet the bad guy at this point. He's Remick. This is one of my least favorite scenes of the whole movie, and I'm going to explain why. He's running through the fields, out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, he's miles out. There's nothing around except for one house, and he's kind of stumbling toward it. Who knows how long he's been running. He's all burned up, right? He's in the sun. Spoilers, he's the vampire. He's the bad guy. He knocks on the door. He can't get into the house without being invited in, obviously, because he's a vampire. This is used quite a bit in the movie. And he begs them to let him in because he says these Native Americans are following him and they want to try to kill him. Choctaw. They were Choctaw, yes. So the Choctaw are following him and they want to kill him. He says they killed his wife or they took his wife. And he's whining you must think I'm a coward, but I have money. Please let me in. And so they do. And eventually the Choctaw come in a car, in a truck with some horses, and they knock on the door. The lady's there with her rifle. It's a couple that lives there, a white couple, and they both have rifles. And she tells them to go away, that no one has ever come. And they're saying, well, if he did come, you really don't want to let him in.
He's not what you think. Yeah.
He's not what you think, exactly.
Right.
And then they drive away because they're scared because it's getting towards nighttime. So everything about this I hate. He's running around in the daytime? Vampires can just run around in the daytime? For miles and miles? And when he sees a house, he doesn't try to go under the house to get, out of the sunlight. He knocks and he's just standing there all, maybe they'll let me in, maybe they won't. And he's being chased by Choctaw in a truck. How far ahead of them was he Or does he run really freaking fast?
Maybe he does run really fast. Some vampires can do that. Yeah.
Absolutely. But when you first see him, he's stumbling towards the house. He's not running.
It did not bother me. In fact, you just now made me think about that, right? Like I just said, there's a backstory. He's being chased. These Native Americans have figured out who and what he is, and they're after him, and he's made it into this house. That's how I took it. Now that you pointed out, it's a bit of a stretch, but again, we can fill that in with, hey, vampires can run really fast. And he was burning. Maybe. He was not unscathed from his time in the sun.
I'll get back to that later on in the plot.
I know where you're going with it, and it's true. That might be an error. That might be a technical error in the storytelling.
There were quite a few screenwriting problems that I had with this movie. But we'll get to them. We'll get to them.
Yeah.
This was the first one, and this was probably the biggest one because it has ramifications later.
Right.
So the things you're supposed to notice about this scene is, one, the couple in the house are KKK. The vampire happens to see the Klan uniform, and it harkens back to Hogwood saying there's no more KKK.
Right.
So something's going on. He lets him in. The vampire immediately kills the husband off screen. You don't see it. While the wife is telling the Choctaw to leave with her rifle. The whole scene couldn't have been a minute. Yeah. She goes in and finds him, and the husband, after being bitten, comes back up as a vampire, like a minute later. That's also something you might want to think about for later in the story.
Now that you pointed out, that seems a bit more of a problem. But again, to me, it was done well because I didn't even worry about it. I knew what they were setting up. It's a vampire movie. Obviously, he's a vampire. Now that you pointed out, I feel stupid for not being like, how can running in the sun? But to me, in the story, it just fit. They weren't, in that scene, trying to delve so much into the details. They're just introducing the bad guy, and he's a deceiver.
Sure.
And then also, something that didn't come back, but I thought the Choctaw might come back and save everybody. Like they're hunting him.
Absolutely.
They do know who he is and what he is, and they're prepared to deal with it.
I thought there were a couple things that were set up in the story that were not used that could have been. So now it is nighttime. The juke joint is rocking. There's all sorts of people there. And Annie allows a customer to buy a 50-cent beer with 30 cents and some fake money. I mentioned from the company store, that whole thing. And once again, you see that Smoke is all pissed about that. But Stack, the brother, he doesn't have as much of a problem with it. And there's slight differences between the characters. This is probably the biggest difference, I think, between those two twins, was that one is more money-driven and the other one cares about the people.
He does care, but and also I do think that is the whole purpose of the scene. But I felt like the other brother was more like a Robin Hood type. He said, listen, they've been out working all the time. Right. They come here, they want to have fun and everything. Just let them. He was going to let him drink anyway because that's the whole spirit of it. But he does point out that we only get a few. Like he's still a gangster himself. He's still there to make money. He's not purely there to just show him a good time on his dollar.
So Mary shows up. Mary is Hailee Steinfeld, who is the white girl who has some black in her, who's in love with Stack. And that's when we find out that he didn't necessarily abandon her. He was worried that the other white people in her community would either be mean to her or maybe even kill her if they saw her with a black guy. So even though it seemed like he was so callous when they met the first time, you can understand that he really does love her too. So like I said, they try to make the characters a little deeper with these stories with the women. But yeah, I think you might be right. They were kind of two-dimensional.
Well, I would say that there was some depth there, but they don't really explore that. They don't evolve as characters. And you also point out that they're not the protagonists. So maybe they didn't need to develop so much. Obviously, it was still a really enjoyable watch, and Michael Jordan won, so he did something right. Yeah.
Well, I don't get me on Oscar wins and how they may or may not be meaningless. Next comes the scene that everyone is going batshit over. This is when Sammy plays the blues, and he basically starts a Christmas carol, only it's a blues carol because he's conjuring the spirits of music, past, present, and future. I thought this was a really cool scene to watch, but as far as the movie went, the story, it was kind of meaningless. It really exists to alert Remick of Sammy's presence. He's outside, and somehow he's able to hear amazing playing by Sammy. I thought we were mentioning about how the Choctaw were sort of a missed opportunity by the writer, somebody who could have helped later. I think the same thing with the spirits. How is he's able to conjure these spirits, even unknowingly, but they have nothing to do with the story? I thought that was a huge missed opportunity. I thought that was one of the coolest things about the movie, and it wasn't used.
Well, I thought it was an extremely powerful scene. It was a great tune, and hearkening back to the father. It's a tune about the father, right?
Right.
Yep. I lied to you, and you're going to be shocked at the truth, and it becomes a real powerful scene. The stuff with the guitarist coming from the future and the spirits being there on screen threw me a little bit, because now we're going outside the story now, even though they had set up that the spirits from the past and the future. To me, I thoroughly enjoyed the scene. It was really powerful. But I'm wondering now, because I had the same thought as you, I was like, oh, in the end, these spirits now are going to come in and stop the vampires, or at least have some nudge.
Have something to do with it.
But maybe he keeps setting this stuff up and not paying it off on purpose to be a little more original and not be quite so predictable. Because I had the same thought as you, though. I did think, okay, I hope this guy who looks like Bootsy Collins
I love that guy.
And does something cool at the end,
Like maybe
all hope is lost, and then the spirits come back and take the vampires back to the spirit world or something. I didn't, whatever it could have done, they didn't do.
It was the guitar and his playing and singing too, I guess, that brought Remick, the bad vampire, to him, that attracted it to him at the very beginning of the movie, and then again at the end. You see that the only thing he has left is the broken fretboard of the guitar. So I'm thinking somehow, well, he does, but I'm thinking somehow he uses the guitar to help save them. But it wasn't his playing, which was his power. That was his power, was the playing the guitar. He doesn't use that. I don't know. I just thought the scene looked cool, but I don't think I felt like you that it was like any sort of powerful. I just didn't see that. I just thought it looked really cool. And I knew what was going on. I mean, he was conjuring these spirits, and it was all the different, past, present, and future of the different sorts of music. And I also really liked that when he goes into the camera, I should say, goes briefly into the room where Chow is playing cards, and you see behind him that there are these old Chinese spirits as well behind him. And so it's like all the different cultures. I mean, unfortunately, there were only 2 cultures there, but if there had been others, it might have been cooler, so that you could have seen all sorts of different things.
Well, he did conjure the spirits, and I don't mean to jump ahead, but at one point, Remick says not just that he was attracted to the music, but Remick needed him to reunite him with his ancestors, to call them back.
We'll get to that. I have questions about that, so we'll get to that.
I thought it was really powerful. All the music in the juke joint, not just his song, but later there's a woman singing.
Right.
All super, to me, just magnificent. I felt like I was there experiencing that music. I thought that was exceptionally well. For me, it hit home really well. Like I was in that scene big time.
That's cool. I would like to mention, though, that the songs that are sung by the different people, that's the soundtrack, and that's not the score.
Right.
And it was the score that won, and not any of the songs from the soundtrack. And I agree with you. I thought some of the songs from the soundtrack were fabulous, especially the one that was up for the Academy Award. So now things get a little strange. Smoke tells Sammy that he doesn't want him playing in the juke joint anymore. He doesn't want him being a musician at all, because he's never seen a happy musician, and that if he wants to make music, he should make church music, which I thought was a really strange thing that happened, that Smoke is all of a sudden, like a Christian, and that he thinks Sammy should be making church music and stuff like that.
No.
And that made no sense to me, kind of.
I like the scene, and let's talk about it, but I took it differently. I think, and he even said, it's not that he became Christian or anything, it's that he realizes he's a gangster, and all of this is gangster shit, and this kid is better than that. He's not.
Even being a musician?
He says, I've known plenty of musicians. I don't know a single one who's happy.
As a musician, you're happy just playing music.
Well, and then Sammy says, listen, I feel like I'm flying. Like there's nothing that compares to this. I'm doing this no matter what. You know?
Exactly.
Right. But I think Michael Jordan's point here was to protect him, not that he's personally had any revelation. Although I didn't think that he had any revelation that he had become religious or anything. He was just like, not for
don't
you.
Be like
this
me.
Is your last. Don't be like me. This is
right.
Like, thank you for helping us out. You're doing an amazing job. This is your last time ever doing any of this. Like, you need to get out.
I can see that.
Did you see
For me, it rang a little hollow, especially when he was doing it at the particular time that he was doing it. Although, when else would he do it other than like the next day? And that's too late for the story, at least.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Maybe a little contrived scene. Like maybe he rushed it a little bit. I'm not sure that he would have had that revelation at that point in the story, but But I liked it.
Smoke, he takes Stack aside and he says, look, this is how much money we've made now. If we keep taking this fake money, we're going to be closed in 2 months. So at this point, Remick arrives, the bad guy, the bad vampire, arrives with the husband and wife that he killed from before. All of the principal characters are at the door meeting him. In the end, it's Smoke who refuses to let them in, even though Stack seems receptive. They start playing that little song, I Picked Poor Robin Clean.
Yeah, and they do a good job of it.
Yeah, and Stack is like bobbing his head. He's like, yeah, I kind of like this stuff.
Yeah.
But Smoke is like, absolutely not, go away. And it's when Stack tells Mary about how they don't have any money. They're going to have to be closed in 2 months if they continue like this, that she has the idea of going out to talk to these white people, and they had a lot of money, they said, and so maybe she'd feel them out and see if they have any sort of ulterior motives and maybe bring them back in. So she goes out to talk to them, and I thought this was a real interesting scene. Stack had given her a gun before she goes out, and she's speaking to them, and when she gets out there, they're playing this song called Go Lassie Go. I've seen it now 3 times, and each time that song, for whatever reason, chokes me up. They have this interesting conversation where Remick gives Mary gold coins but says they're not really any good to you because you're in this deep pain, and that the real reason you came out here is for fellowship and love. And she says, well, she is in pain because her mother just died. And Remick says, oh, I wish I could have seen her before she died because I could have changed that, but I can save you, which makes Mary be like, what are you talking about, save me? I don't need any saving. And then that's when Remick starts like slobbering, and she gets scared and pulls out the gun and walks off. She backs off, but she only backs off a certain amount, and then she turns around to go back to the club, and you can tell Remick leaps into the air and he's gonna kill her. But I thought that was really interesting that she's in pain. What sort of pain did you think he saw in her? Was it the fact that she was half white, half black? Was it the fact that she lost her mother? Or was it something else?
Well, she says mother. I think that she was confused that her real pain is the relationship pain.
With Stack.
With Stack. And the mother is a fresh, and she says that that's her pain. But the real pain, she is motivated, her character throughout the movie is just trying to get back with Stack. Even when she's a vampire, that's her way to get it in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yet the vampire says about friendship and
fellowship and love.
Fellowship and love.
Fellowship and love.
So she didn't, though.
Well, I mean, he's a vampire. He's not actually on her side, you know.
But he thinks he is. He sees this group that he's creating of all these vampires as this big fellowship and love camaraderie.
They're making their own clan based on fellowship and love. They say explicitly at one point, we're going to replace that clan. The vampire character is complex. He might be the most complex character in the movie, even though he's the bad guy. And, you know, we don't see no development of him or anything. But still, he's all fellowship and love. He gives them all truth. Listen, these guys you bought the sawmill from or the clan, they were always going to kill you. I'm giving you eternal life. Come be with us and escape all this stuff and have real power and eternal, like he's...
Wow, the way you said that, that's the preacher.
Oh.
eternal life, only you have to die first, and you do have to die first if you become a vampire.
Or as a Christian, when you die, that's when
Exactly.
you become eternal. You're
Exactly.
not an eternal body.
So are they saying that this vampirism is its own religion, and that religion is bad either way, or no?
It's an interesting question. I thought when
Mary's
Stack
boyfriend
is trying to talk them into letting him in and to joining him as a vampire, he makes a really compelling case, So yes, and now that you mentioned the preacher aspect, I think they are kind of overtly saying that they're both the same.
I didn't catch it until you were literally saying that, like, exactly what a preacher would be saying to you. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, that's interesting. I even though I picked up on the character, I didn't pick up on the association with the preacher and the analogy there.
And it's just like when a person gets religion, they become all fanatical and, oh my God, this is great, you have to join. All of the vampires were like that. Once they were made into vampires, all of them. Oh my God, if you see what it's like, you're going to love it. You should join.
This is the way. This is the answer. Yeah, they say all of those things explicitly.
So is this a commentary on Christianity, how it's like vampirism? It's a horrible thing?
I think you tagged on the horrible thing part. I think the analogy
is being a vampire a good thing?
Well, I mean, they're still vampires, and in the end, they're definitely treated as bad guys. There's no ambiguity there.
Or are you saying that maybe they're not? They didn't.
I'm saying that it's
if they were different, they didn't. They could have been good vampires.
Well, the guy was love and fellowship,
but that's what religion would tell you too. I don't know.
Well, my whole point being, the analogy does now seem pretty clear. Right? Like, I don't think that's accidental or anything, or we're reading into that. But is it that religion is bad, or that vampires can be good? Or that you're still getting, and is it all, at some point, I forget the line, but at some point they say it's all, life is suffering. I'm paraphrasing now. Like, there is no happiness. That's all a myth. Like, there's still racism in Chicago. One guy says, "Yeah, I hear a black man can go where he wants in Chicago," and you're like, "Don't believe everything you hear." Like, there is no happy ending for anybody. Basically, is the attitude. And these are different camps, but they're two sides of the same coin. I just don't think that it was necessarily a negative commentary on religion. It might be
a positive commentary on vampirism.
Well, and family and togetherness and love and what was it? Love and fellowship.
Fellowship and love.
Right, fellowship and love. I don't know. I think it's.
Can't we have fellowship and love without a clan?
Well, that might be the point. Maybe, I don't know. But again,
without being on a side or something.
One of the brothers goes on a whole rant about, I've seen all kinds of things in this world. I've seen people die in ways you can't imagine. And I've never seen any magic. I've never seen any ghosts. None of that is real. And then, of course, he's confronted with a very different reality.
Right.
So maybe the vampires are analogous, or maybe they are a stand-in. I don't know. But the idea that the preacher and the maid vampire were two sides of the same coin is I think, accurate. Right.
So now Mary is turned into a vampire, and she now needs permission to get into the club because vampire lore, you can't get into a building unless you're invited in.
Which they use very heavily. Like, it's it's a big part of the action, a big part of the whole plot, is they can't come in unless you invite them in.
Absolutely. Yeah. Unknowingly, Cornbread, who is the bouncer, has no idea she's a vampire. She's like, yeah, come on in. So she does. And she lures Stack, who is her ex-boyfriend, Sex, into an empty room and eventually bites him. And at the same time, Smoke and Sammy come in, and they see this. He's bleeding on the ground. She gets up. She's like, oh, you don't understand. And immediately, Smoke draws two guns and just unloads all his rounds. She drops to the ground, immediately gets back up. Remember that, because some people seem to have a worse effect to bullets than others, but she didn't have any effect at all to bullets. She jumps up and she runs past them saying, we're going to kill every one of you, as she runs out the door, which was a good scene. It was a great scene, actually.
Yeah. It was a shocking scene. This was a big action scene. I liked the fact that he saw his brother bleeding out on the floor and immediately killed her, or
Right.
at least tried to kill her. He immediately took out his guns and shot her dead. No questions, none of this, like, what's going on? She's got blood on her mouth. She's like, it's not what it looks like. He shoots her. He doesn't ask her a question. He's on pure emotion, and I liked that.
I think on reflection, it makes sense that one of these characters dies, becomes a vampire. At the time it was happening, especially the first viewing, I was really shocked. I was like, there's no way because I, like you, the brothers are sort of the heroes. There's no way they can get killed or turned into vampires or whatever. So the brother dies. Stack dies in Smoke's arms. The shooting stops the party, and Delta Slim tells everybody to go home, unknowingly sending them all to their deaths because they go outside and they all get killed by the vampires, including Bo Chow, the husband of the Chow couple. Now, Annie thinks Mary is a haint, which is a sort of like a ghost, a vengeful spirit, and she's worried that Stack might also become a haint. I don't know how that works. I looked it up, but I couldn't totally understand the whole thing with haints. But that they should move him outside because he might become one of them. But Smoke refuses. So they lock him in a room. And this next scene I didn't really like. Cornbread had gone outside to piss, and he gets turned into a vampire. And when he comes back, he needs to be invited in. They use this quite a bit, like you said. And it's this big comedic thing where he's like, oh, come on, let me in, And they're like, no, you've been coming in all this time. Why do you need permission now? And I just thought it was, like I said, comedy and horror go very well together, but I thought this whole scene missed the mark, and it just went on and on and on.
It might have been drawn out, but I thought it was establishing their situation. They realize that he's been turned, and they realize that they're screwed. They're trapped in the building. It changes the tone. It's not just that she came in and got one of them, that they're all now trapped.
I totally agree. I think they just should have done that scene a little quicker. And I will also say that you're right about it changing the tone, because previously it was a lot of like background. You're learning about all these people and all the different things that are going on, the vampires and all the dynamics between everybody. And now it becomes just a vampire story. And I think while I really enjoyed the writing at the first half, from here on I didn't enjoy it nearly as much. And I think it reminds me a little bit of we were talking about Bone Lake and how I really loved the mystery part at the beginning. And then when it turned into this generic slasher film, I wasn't really interested anymore, although I didn't think it was bad. This I didn't like even as much as that because it gets really corny, and we'll get into that.
Interesting.
I'm also going to nitpick a little bit about this whole scene that's going on where they're talking to Cornbread. Stack is dead in the room. Now, the other people turned into vampires in like a minute, and like 10 minutes have gone by, and he's still dead, I guess. I don't know. It's nitpicking, I know.
Well, yeah, I guess, yeah. And maybe I don't know, maybe your point's valid, but I do feel like maybe that's a little nitpicky with some of it.
It's a nitpick. Anyway, Stack breaks down the door, and for some reason, Annie dumps a jar of pickled garlic on him. I'm not sure why she thought to do that, but she did it. And that was how she discovered that he's a vampire, and she tells everybody. I thought that was a little weak, but
maybe
that's what
a little weak. I would maybe agree that it's a little weak, but at the same time, it was within her character to try and figure out exactly what's going on. She was not
she
like
thought she
positive.
knew.
Well, she said, I think this is a haint, but I don't know. It didn't bother me. You're right that it might be a little bit contrived. I don't know enough about haints and all that to know that whether or not it's within her character to have had a firm, hard decision. In my mind, they're all crapping their pants and just trying to figure out what's going on. And she's the one who knows about all this kind of metaphysical stuff. And so the fact that she would stop and at least try to throw the garlic water on him just in case he's a vampire made sense.
So everybody has run out of the building except for our survivors. I think there's 6 or 7 of them. They realize there's vampires outside, and they start preparing to defend themselves. She tells them, steaks and garlic and all sorts of stuff, so they start, doing that. And at the same time, the vampires are outside singing Irish folk songs. Apparently, in this story, if a vampire kills somebody, the vampire gets all of their memories, and the people that get killed get all of his memories when they turn into vampires. I don't have a problem with this, other than that, again, screenwriting issues, there were holes in the plot because of that. And we'll get to that later when they pop up. I mean, obviously they needed some way to rationalize all these black people singing all the Irish songs, because otherwise how the hell would they have known them? Or playing instruments that they've never played before. All these people suddenly can play instruments and things. And I guess if that's what you needed to do for your story.
I think it falls in line with the whole, you're under the sway of the head vampire. That didn't bother me at all.
They find a guy who's passed out in a broken bottle of red wine, but they think it's blood. So they think he's dead and he's going to turn into a vampire. They pick him up and they throw him outside. And of course, it was just a bottle of wine, and they think somebody has bitten him, so there must still be a vampire inside. So sort of like they did in The Thing, where they test everybody's blood, they make everybody eat a clove of garlic. And I thought that scene was kind of ridiculous. It was done for humor. Delroy Lindo's character starts like dancing about like, for no reason. It was just because he says he drank too much. I thought it was kind of ridiculous.
I don't know that it was comedy. It was filling out the scene. I thought the fact that they were doing a thing like The Thing, like they were creating some internal doubt was good, but it was that scene, I agree, was kind of poorly done. Especially the Delroy Lindo overreaction did not fit, because he's more or less sober throughout.
Yeah, by then he even said at this point, I'm sober, man, after the gunshots and stuff.
Yeah, right. Like even well before that scene, he's got his wits about him. I don't think he would be drunk enough to gag over garlic when he knows that his life is on the line. And the whole scene, even just making him eat garlic, didn't make a whole lot of sense. You can't touch the garlic. Hold it in your hand. Like whatever. The whole scene was, I would agree, that part was weak. I saw what they were trying to do, create that internal doubt. And given the rest of the way the movie plays out, it was unnecessary. I get having that scene in there could have been great, but it wasn't great, and it was not necessary.
Naturally, the guy that they put outside who just had wine on him, he tries to get back in, and he gets killed. Meanwhile, Remick tries to explain to them that if they become vampires, this is what you were talking about previously. He explains to them, if you become vampires, you'll immediately have this camaraderie, you'll have a family. You'll have a family in a world, he says, that has already left them for dead because it won't allow them to prosper, whereas they can join him and be all-powerful. It's kind of the same conversation we had about religion.
Yeah, and he's sincere in that, and he shares with them
like everything he says. People.
So, but he's accurate. The Klan was going to come,
absolutely
kill them and not let them have any peace at all. So that's an interesting part. That's where I think the vampire character is a really complex character. Yeah. And at the end, he's still just out for himself. He's there to be reunited with his relatives through this kid's music.
That's the point where he says that too. And I don't understand what that means. Reunited with spirits?
Yeah. He's now been walking the earth for God knows how long alone. I mean, he has his minions, but they're not his people. They're not his relatives. And through this kid, he can revisit his loved ones. And he talks.
That's really interesting. I didn't think of that. Yeah. That's interesting for any sort of a vampire story.
Right. The more we talk about it, the more I like the movie. Like, I liked it already a lot. It was, again, I felt like I was nitpicking that some of the characters were a little thin because the movie was very fun to watch. But now that we talk about it, I feel like maybe I missed some of the heavier stuff.
Maybe this is a good way to break down a movie, and then you'll want to watch it again afterwards.
Yeah.
So one of my biggest pet peeves is where characters in a movie do something stupid. If you set up a character as a stupid character, then yeah, he can do something stupid. And if there's a reason for somebody to do something stupid, then okay. But when a character does something dumb for absolutely no reason, pointless, just so that the plot can continue, I really, really hate that. First, Remick tells Grace, who is the wife of Bo Chow, if she doesn't let the vampires in to kill them all, then he is going to go and make her daughter a vampire. So she does. She says, yeah, come on in. I mean, is that not insanely dumb? What did she expect to happen?
Oh, but I think you're selling it way short. Not that you're wrong. Like, I get your point of view, but I think you may have missed the complexity of the next minute or so that happens between where he says this. First of all, they physically cover her mouth. Like, they prevent her from inviting her in for a few seconds. But when she does...
I got it, but why would she do that anyways?
Because she has to protect her daughter.
How does that protect her daughter? That's the question.
Because you're going to have this fight.
30 or 40 vampires against this. There were 6 of them. They're actually, which is another thing that I don't like, that suddenly there were like 9 or 10 of them, people that had never been there at all. Suddenly they had more people, so that during the fight, there were people to get killed.
Now that you've mentioned it, I see that, but that didn't even occur to me at the time.
I think if they wanted her to, for whatever reason, to blow up and let them in or whatever, it needed to be written better, because there's just no way that anyone can rationalize, if I let them in to kill us all, I'm going to be able to save my daughter. I don't
the
see
exact opposite reaction. I literally thought, this is what makes sense, is they've threatened her daughter. That's the only, it would take something like that to get you to come out before the sun comes up. Like, all you have to do is sit tight, unless they're going to go do something that's worse than death by killing your kid. When she does eventually, I just want to point this out, when she does eventually invite them in, she's, come on, motherfuckers. Like, she's not saying, come kill me. She's like saying, let's just...
No, of course. But how does she expect it?
They've been sharpening steaks and getting their garlic and getting the silver bullets or whatever they have.
Good luck with that. The one guy emptied 2 entire pistols into the girl, and she just got up and walked off. We'll have to disagree about that one, because if it's me in the house, what I'm going to try to do is sneak out somehow and go to protect my daughter. I'm not going to try to have a fight with 30 or 40 vampires. Again, these were people who were in the club, and 3 vampires out there killed them all and turned them. Now there's like 7 or 8 people. And then, what's the first thing she does when the vampires open the door and come in? She's got a Molotov cocktail, and she throws it at the vampire. Even if he didn't knock it to the side, he's inside the place. She's starting a fire inside the place that she's trying to defend.
To kill them with fire and protect her family. She knows she's not getting out of it. I don't know. I guess we will just have to disbullshit.
She immediately dies in the fire that she started, and that was the end of her.
Well, she's choking out the other vampire away.
She did kill one vampire.
I mean, it was a foolish decision. The other characters understood that it was a bad decision. I'm not saying it was a smart decision, but to me, it was believable. I did not consider that a bullshit factor. I can see why you would say that, though. I'm not going to say that I'm right and you're wrong. I'm just saying perspective with a teenage daughter that's, out in the workforce. If somebody said, okay, well, if you're not going to do this, I'm going to go up to Publix and kill your daughter. We're having it out right then and there, no matter what. I don't care if you're Shaquille O'Neal and you're going to literally just stomp me to death. I have no chance. I'm still going to go ahead and have that fight.
I would try to do things a little bit more smarter.
I mean, I don't know. Again, I do see what you're saying. It's not like you're crazy for thinking that.
So then there's this big fight, right, which I thought was very poorly shot and very poorly edited. You can't see a lot of the things that are going on. At one point, tell me if you saw this. At one point, Annie throws the garlic juice on Remick, the main vampire, and he immediately starts hissing. And all the other vampires start hissing. And she says, whatever you do to him, they're all going to feel. Did you even catch that?
I picked up on that fact. I did not hear her say it. The rest of the movie, it's explicitly acted out.
It is, but that was where you discover it, and it was just done very, very poorly.
I will say that I don't disagree with you about the fight scene. It was plenty of action, and to me it was just an action plot point. The actual details of it were not that great. There was a lot of times where a vampire was about to bite somebody, and they got out of it with now you're into bullshit factor stuff.
Yeah, all the fight was bullshit. I mean, there were plenty of times where these vampires with their superhuman strength, and I mean they show it multiple times. We'll get to the fight between the Smokestack brothers, which is really ridiculous. Smoke is somehow able to completely stop Stack and kill him, or look like he's going to kill him. Anyway, Remick jumps on top of Smoke. And as I was saying, despite his superhuman strength, claws, and fangs, Smoke laying underneath him, and he wasn't even paying attention. He's looking to the side because Stack is killing his ex-wife, Annie. So he's not even paying attention. He's like going, oh, Annie, Annie. And the guy's on top of him, but somehow with one hand he's able to just hold him off. Like I said, from the time it became a vampire movie and just a vampire movie, it got really silly.
Well, I wonder if there's not a theme here that's throughout, because the point of that scene was his connection to Annie and not his threat of being killed, even though it's an action scene.
Yeah, so, but he would have been killed.
I know. I do agree with you. I agree with you that the fight scene was bullshit.
If he's on the other side of the room and he just kills somebody and he sees this happening and he runs through all the vampires at risk of his own life, isn't that a little bit better? Showing, I don't care about anything. I want to try to help, as opposed to doing what he did.
No,
I just think it's.
Yeah.
I can't believe this screenplay was actually up for best screenplay, but whatever. Actually, it won. It won best screenplay.
I did not have that strong.
So many BS things, especially, again, I really liked the way it was written at the start. As I've mentioned a few times, I think the first half of the movie was very, very good. And they set up a lot of great things. The second half left a lot to be desired for me, especially the battle scenes. And then, for whatever reason, and I have no idea why, I don't even know what happens. At some point, something happens, and all the vampires, retreat. They all run outside. And the only people that are left are Delta Slim, Smoke, Sammy, Pierline, who is Sammy's kind of love interest. Just the four of them. They're all that's left now that Annie's dead. And Slim tells them to run upstairs, which is something you never, ever, ever do in a horror film. You never run upstairs, because where can you go after you're upstairs? They run upstairs,
and there's a fire.
And there's a fire in the place, right? Exactly. And he's going to hold them off himself by sacrificing himself. Just insanely dumb. I don't think anyone would do that, let alone Slim. He slashes his wrists so he starts bleeding. Now, the vampires had retreated and run outside. They wouldn't have even come in, except, suddenly they smell blood because he slashed his arms and goes, come on, come on. So how does that even help? When, again, they were outside, they weren't even inside the building. They come in and immediately kill him within about 4 seconds. So not only was it completely pointless, but by the time the other three get upstairs, Remick and Stack had jumped through a window up there and were already waiting for them. So it wasn't like he did anything to help them. Don't you think it would have been smarter to go up there and, keep fighting?
I pretty much agree with everything you said there. like I want to refute it just to make this conversation more interesting. But the whole premise, I thought, was the fire was getting so out of hand that the vampires retreated. That was the only thing that made any sense. And it's thin. That's very thin. And
well, if it wasn't, why did they run back in immediately when he slashed his arm?
Right. It made no because the smell of blood was so compelling.
There's blood all over the place.
That's true. It's his fresh blood. But I also did feel like it was in his character to try and save them. At one point, he says, anybody who comes back in here has to go through me to get to you.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, he's decided this is it, and they've set it up. He's gone through a lifetime of hard life, seen horrible shit, and this is it, his last stand. But the fact that he would just sacrifice himself did not make any sense. He would fight him. He might go out and charge them or something. But...
Exactly. I totally agree with you. See, that to me is it's called lazy writing. I want this character to do something that he might do anyways, but I'm not going to think enough to give him a good reason to do it or a good way of doing it.
Yeah.
Just like you said, I could see him running out there, maybe running away so that he draws them or something. But what he did was stupid. And as far as I'm concerned, it was the same thing with the Chinese lady. I mean, maybe she freaking runs to the car to try to jump into a car and get away. I don't know. She does something other than literally get herself killed. That's what happens. She gets herself killed. As we continue, like I said, Remick and Stack jump up onto the second floor, and they're waiting for these last three characters. They kill Pierline. Sammy jumps out the window, and Smoke and Stack have this big fight, which is, again, ridiculous because Stack is now a superhuman vampire, but Smoke pretty much doesn't have a problem, at least holding his own with him for a good long time.
I mean, Michael Jordan's a big guy. There's not,
So is the other Michael Jordan, only now he's a vampire.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, I do agree with you. I agree with you all the bat. Even though I took the action scene as just an action beat and I didn't worry about it too much, like it didn't take me out of the movie. But there's no doubting that there was an extreme bullshit factor.
The first 2 times I watched it, I kind of was like, okay, these are just horror show vampire battles. But as I was breaking it down this third time, it was, as I'm watching it slowly, it really stood out to me. So maybe when you're just watching at regular pace, it's not as bad. Meanwhile, Sammy, who still has his guitar after all this, which is also bullshit, and he jumped out a window and the guitar's in fine shape, runs out to a lake that was next to the mill. I don't remember ever seeing a lake next to the mill in any of this beginning of the first 2 hours of the movie, but I guess there was a lake next to the mill. And Remick jumps from the second story and catches him at the lakeside, throws him down into the water, and has sort of like a fake baptismal. He's kind of mocking a baptism by dunking him under the water multiple times, which is kind of cool, but it's the whole, he could kill him right now, but the villain has to explain things to give the good guys time to stop him. That's what I saw in that scene, which I thought was ridiculous.
You're right. However, I didn't find it so ridiculous because it was already in his character. He liked to expound on these things. He did consider himself a preacher type guy. Sure. And then he's doing the baptism was pretty overt. You're still not wrong. Like I know I'm justifying here a little bit, but to me, watching it, it felt natural. And then also because he had established that he wanted to just meet with his ancestors, and that's why he's here, to bring that out of this kid. Yes, a little bullshit factor that he delayed so long and gave him such an opportunity, but not out of character.
All the other vampires, the 30 or 40 vampires, go to the lakeside to watch. So they're all watching, right?
I don't know that it's necessarily bullshit factor, but I was like, wow. Like everybody's completely turned and just all a big clan now.
Right.
I don't know. That bothered me a little bit.
Well, that's the part where he takes the piece of the guitar that he shouldn't have even still had with him. And why would metal float? Metal wouldn't float. The guitar, if it's wood, might float, but the metal wouldn't. Anyway, he grabs the floating piece of metal and he smashes it through Remick's head like a circular saw, causing not just him pain, but as we discussed, all the vampires start writhing in pain because the main vampire got hurt. Now, eventually, Remick recovers. He pulls the thing out of his head. He throws it down. He grabs Sammy by the throat, and he starts talking. Again, talking and talking. He's recovered, okay? So I assume all the other vampires are recovered, too? We talked about this in a different movie. I can't remember what it was, but, it was Batman. You do a close-up of somebody, and so you can't see somebody else coming from behind. But in real life, there were 30 or 40 vampires who would have seen Smoke, who must have jumped off the second floor of the building that was on fire that didn't fall to the ground for some reason, jumps out of the second floor, runs to the lake past 40 vampires standing there, splashing in the water, comes up behind the vampire, who doesn't hear him, whatever, and stabs him in the back with a stake and kills him. That's kind of BS, if you ask me.
There's the clear BS factor there. And it didn't bother me so much in the moment because I thought for sure he was going to take now the broken fretboard from the guitar and stab
and use that as a stake.
And I was literally like, hey, his guitar wasn't covered in blood. I was having a different bullshit experience. And he did give a twist, though, because it wasn't the guitar that killed him. It was ultimately Smoke's stabbing him with an actual stake. And even that doesn't kill him. It's the dawn.
Right. So, but his progeny are all writhing in pain from the stake. And then the sun comes up, and he's immediately caught on fire, right? It's not like I can handle the sun for a little while. All of the other vampires catch on fire and die immediately, right?
The first ray of sun burns
the first ray of sunlight. He at least lasts maybe 30 seconds, maybe. So I don't know how fast he was running for all those miles that evening before the sun went down. Right.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, all the feelings or whatever happens to him, his progeny feel as well. So I'm not sure if they would have died anyways since he died, if they feel what he feels. Although Annie specifically says, I have no idea how she would know this. She knows her vampire lore, but she specifically says, oh, no. If a vampire dies, his progeny doesn't die. They have to be killed separately.
One by one.
One by one. One more problem.
Yeah.
If they were new vampires and they didn't have all the memories of Remick, they don't know what the fuck's going on. They're just vampires. They're brand new. They have no idea what's happening. They're fresh, new vampires. But no, they have all of his memories, and they all know that the sun's about to come up, and if it does, they'll die immediately. Why did they just stand there all that time, letting themselves die?
I think there might have been, even on first viewing, I had this feeling, I don't know if it's a thought exact, but the vampire was killing himself. Like, he could have won that fight multiple times, and maybe they were feeling that as well. They definitely 100% in the movie, it show you explicitly with Bo that they instantly have all of his knowledge and all of his memories.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Instantly.
So if they did, why would they just, even if the vampire wanted to kill himself, do you think all of his progeny were like, yeah, we'll just stand out here even though we know we'll immediately die?
Well, they're under his sway. I don't know how much free will they have.
Okay.
It's high bullshit factor. It is, no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. Yeah.
That ends the threat. Sammy drives home the next morning. Meanwhile, Smoke waits for Hogwood and his clan buddies, and while he lies in the foliage with a sniper weapon so that nobody can see him and he can shoot them all one by one, gets up and walks straight out to them, holding, a bunch of guns and letting himself be a huge target. It's amazing he wasn't shot 1,000,000 times. He does eventually get shot. But he could have just stayed undercover and killed them all. He had grenades. He had freaking Tommy guns. He had this sniper rifle. He could have blown out all their tires and taken them off one by one. I'm sorry?
I think he snipers them first, and then once he's out of sniper bullets, he gets up and starts coming with the Tommy gun and takes out the masses.
Yeah, I think that could have been a lot better planned, but he basically just allows it. I mean, it's obvious that he had to die at the end for the end to happen. That's the thing. It's like, we need these things to happen so the plot will go, but we're gonna be too lazy to write something that actually makes sense. We're gonna just have him walk right out in the middle of everybody and get himself killed. And that happens so many times.
To me, I wonder if we're not over-analyzing, or if maybe somehow we're just a little, because to me, the point of that scene was that he believed Remick, and the clan was coming.
The point of the scene is so that he dies, and in death, his spirit is reunited with his wife and daughter. It just could have been done in a way that made sense as far as I'm concerned, instead of him just walking out and getting himself killed. Unless you make it known somehow that he's trying to kill himself, which would be fine, because his brother's dead now, his club is burned down, he's got no more money or whatever. That would make sense, but you have to explain that this is what he wants to do instead of just walking out there. It didn't look like he was trying to get himself killed, because it was literally the last guy before he killed the last guy. The last bullet hit him and killed him. So it wasn't like he was like, oh, kill me. I
had the same thought. I was like, you're winning, just lay low. There's still like 5 of them you have to kill still, and they all have
guns. So again, he dies and he's reunited with Annie and a child. I was like, because I felt it was poorly written, I didn't get the emotional impact of that part, but I understand how it was supposed to be emotionally powerful. Meanwhile, Sammy goes back to the church where it all began, and his father is telling him to drop the guitar and accept the Lord and all that, just how it started at the beginning. But what you find out is that Sammy doesn't. He keeps the piece of the guitar, he jumps in the car, and he drives out of Mississippi to become a famous blues player. That's how the movie ends. And then there's a little epilogue that happens 60 years later. Sammy's now an 80-year-old man who is suddenly Buddy Guy. He's played by Buddy Guy, who is a great blues player.
I took it to mean that this is Buddy Guy's backstory. And
oh, wow. No, I didn't see that. I thought he was just being played by him. But that's a cool thing, too. And he runs into Stack and Mary, who are still as young as they were in 1932 because they're vampires. They don't age. Obviously, you realize that Smoke didn't kill Stack when he had the opportunity to, when they were having a fight in the burning building, which is ridiculous that he even had an opportunity to, because whatever. But he doesn't kill him, and he makes Stack promise not to hurt Sammy unless Sammy asks for it. The vampires ask Sammy if he would like an immortal life now that he's really old and he's close to death. But Sammy turns it down, and that's how the movie ends. Except how in the hell did Stack and Mary survive the sunlight that day? It's not like they could have hidden in the fucking building that burned down or jumped into a car where you couldn't see the sunlight. How could they possibly survive?
Yeah.
But whatever, there's a lot of holes in this movie.
You could hide underneath the car. You could have gone into the basement. There are things that conceivably you could have. I think they should have stopped with him driving off. Like, even the buddy guy stuff was just code. Yeah. Like, it was fun.
I thought it would have been cool if they showed him as an old man, as buddy guy. That would have been very cool. But then they tacked on the vampires coming to see them.
Yeah, yeah.
We have gone through the entire movie. Every scene explained why we liked certain scenes and why we didn't like certain scenes. Do you have any closing thoughts on Sinners?
Very watchable movie, very enjoyable movie. We're here as critics picking it apart, especially the second half. But still, it's a fun movie. I highly recommend it. If somehow you haven't seen it, go see it. I know you disagree, but I thought it was wonderfully directed. It was visually stunning. It was a fun storyline. I'm probably suffering, and maybe, I'll speak for myself and not you, but all the hype set my expectations exceptionally high. So when some of the stuff didn't live up to that, I did feel like, after the first viewing, I was like, I kind of didn't get all the hype. On second viewing, I liked it more, and now that we've talked through it, I feel like maybe I was missing the point on some of those more nitpicky things. But we're coming in here with a purposeful point of view to critique it. So
sure,
I really do like it. That was a great movie, a fun movie. But like I opened with, it's still a vampire movie. It's fun and great as a vampire movie. It's an exceptionally deep vampire movie. But throwing vampires into a deep movie, it's not. Yeah,
I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I would say that the first time I saw it, I liked it, but that was about it. There was all this hype. I was like, why? It's just it's a good vampire movie, and that's about it. The second time I watched it, I actually liked it a lot more, just like you. And then this third time, as I really went through the story, I looked at some of the directing and the different things, and I didn't like the way certain things were shot, but I was really looking at the story and the writing, because it kind of bothered me that it won Best Original Screenplay over other screenplays, but we're not going to go into that. I'm not saying I went into it looking for faults. I thought, as I was watching it, the first half, I was like, oh my God, this movie did deserve a Best Original Screenplay, because the first half was incredibly well written. It was set up so beautifully. All these, like you say, very complex characters, lots of them, and they have all sorts of dynamics between them. And then it became like a vampire story about halfway through, and I thought it was completely ridiculous and very poorly written. So I don't know how I feel about it overall, but that's Sinners for me.
Gotcha.
So are we good with Sinners? Does everybody understand what we thought about Sinners?
I think we did a very thorough job.
Thorough. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, then, that's going to do it from the Sixth Row Center. We would stay and chat longer, but not only has this gotten incredibly long, there's also a movie that we're going to see, and it's starting right now.